The UK and you're looking at exporting globally. Post-Brexit in particular, what are the opportunities open to you? I am a private equity fund manager. I've also started businesses in software which export globally. And 15 years ago, the government asked me to be part of the Global Entrepreneur Program alongside my existing business as one of the government's deal makers. What that role entails is I look for outstanding technology companies from around the world with a view to bringing the company, the intellectual property, and the entrepreneur to the United Kingdom and establishing their global headquarters here. So they become British companies and benefit, of course, the United Kingdom as a result. So I want to share with you, as British companies looking to the rest of the world, what are the things that I've learned help companies succeed. What are the resources available to you for both financing and opening doors for organic growth, getting those critical customers for success, and also getting the financing that you might need. As I explained, my role is the bit on the bottom right hand corner of this picture. What I actually do is very often sit at my desk going through pitch decks, cash flow statements, balance sheets, P&Ls, looking at companies and what kind of areas they should be going on into and what they should be doing. Now, this role has been particularly good for me in the sense that it's allowed me to meet amazing companies from around the world: Singapore, India, Hong Kong, Turkey, the Middle East, and so on. And I've been permitted to showcase these with the rest of the team through the BBC and the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Number 10 and all the rest of it. So it's been very fulfilling to do that, as I say, alongside my day job, which is running my fund. Do connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Okay, so let's start off with the funding part first. How can we help British companies grow through funding resources in the private sector, which are available there, and quasi-private sector, so funds run by the private sector, which they might have got from government, for instance. And not just, say, necessarily venture capital, that might be something they look for, but also it might be angel funding, seed capital, and you're familiar with the valley of death where so many good, otherwise good quality companies might fail. So how do we ensure that that doesn't happen? What are the sources of funding? How might they be accessed? One of the things that I've realized over the number of years of doing this is there is an information gap, and of course there is, in that people looking for capital aren't always aware of all the various sources that are there, whether it's loans, grants, especially some which might be specific to their sector, specific to their part of the United Kingdom that they are in. So let's close that information gap for a start, okay? After all, very few go to venture capital. The vast majority will, after friends and family, be looking for debt financing or preferably grants. I mean, if you can get money without even giving away equity or having it as a debt on your balance sheet, then why not, okay? The positive news is there's probably more capital available right across the board in the United Kingdom now than there's ever been. The latest report from Tech Nation, let alone since 2013, show that that trend is continuing. If anything, it's accelerating. And this despite, I say despite Brexit, because some may have thought because of Brexit that might have changed. As an entrepreneur, I'm congenitally optimistic, and I remain so on this. If I wasn't an optimist, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur. I think they go hand in hand. Probably unrealistically optimistic is what makes most entrepreneurs, and it's what's going to make success for British companies going global, regardless of Brexit. So, or because of and thanks to Brexit, that extra focus on being global. Now that capital, which is going to fuel that growth, continues coming in. So I'm going to share with you some of the sources of capital from grants, loans, equity, angels, crowdfunding, all those various sources, just to make sure that when you're capital raising, you're ticking the box, but also a proper process in which to do it. You can see some of the trends and growth here as well in the funding rounds. We're in a very good position also to have that capital give a return on investment to investors. And it's not just the fact that there's capital there. One of the reasons it's there is because the UK tends to produce good returns as a result of that capital. It provides and produces unicorns, billion-dollar companies. They're not the only measure of success, but people with capital, when they give it for investment, do expect some kind of return, and that's one metric that one might look at. So the UK has been doing rather well in that regard. It's also got a lot of experienced talent to pick from. A lot of people who've worked at these companies, helped these companies grow, and then gone on to angel invest or work in other companies, are experienced at taking that whole story up. Okay, and you can see a whole bunch of companies there that have got their bases in the United Kingdom, global bases in the United Kingdom as British companies, and going abroad. So you want to make sure you're in that group. I'm assuming the people I'm talking to are not just in it as lifestyle entrepreneurs, that they actually want their businesses to scale and grow. And if I put startups to one side and I take the definition of scale ups as a company growing at 20% per annum, then I'm assuming that bare minimum is what you are looking at. And of course, whilst we've got London as a flagship, let's not forget, and often overlooked, in terms of financing and sources of financing, if you look at Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, you've got immense amounts of capital available in those, where there seems to be, from my experience, lesser competition for that capital, because people always tend to gravitate towards London. So I'd say the smart money and the smart thing to do is to look outside of London within the United Kingdom as well. Okay, many of you will know this. And where to look, I'll share that with you in a second. The trend towards VC investment continues increasing up and up. And of course, as I said, venture capital is just one tiny part of it. Very few companies actually go for venture capital. They tend to go friends and family, then the seed rounds. So let's have a look at some of those areas that they might look at. So let's start off with some of the resources. Over that 15 years, because the same issue kept coming up, which is capital and introductions. It's only those two things which tend to come up. Alpesh, how do I get access to capital? How do I get access to people? And introductions to grow my business. So if we look at both of those things, what I've listed on that website, tech2great.com, is every single UK acceleration incubator. Some of those will give you grants and loans. You might not be ready for an incubator or accelerator, or you might be beyond that stage. And that's fine. On the same link, there's going to be others as well. Then it comes to the introductions. And the biggest mistakes people make, I will share with you in a second. I've seen what successful companies do right, and I've seen what 90% of everybody else does wrong. And I'm going to share that with you as well. Plus, I've included a few other things that people ask for. What about the lawyers? What about accountants? What about workspaces? Who do government like to work with? Who've done well and have proved useful when you've worked with them? And that's all on there. I've also included every single UK Angel VC group and what they do and their contact details. Okay, so you can narrow it down to absolutely make sure that the sector you're in, the stage of business you are in, and the geography, the part of the country you are in, have you gone through every single source of funding? Because I tell you what, the answer to that question is not to randomly email people and say, hey, Alpesh, do you know anybody who might want to put some money into my company? First thing that tells me is you're not diligent, you're not going to get funding. The question is so generic that the reply is usually, I don't know. How do I know if somebody wants to put money into your company? How can I tell? Without more information or anything. So let's look at making sure that we're a bit more professional and diligent, and we're really driven to succeed in this. Okay. I've also put all the sources of crowdfunding. We've increasingly seen more companies do that, particularly if it's a retail business, because it's easier to understand and the crowd loves some of that. And funding grants from a variety of sources, not just Innovate UK, but all sorts of other sources. If I'm looking to raise money, I've got to make sure I've ticked every single box and then prioritized each one. How am I going to do that? I'm going to show you that in a second. This is crowdfunding, by the way. One thing I like about crowdfunding, whether you're looking at sourcing money from the crowd, as it were, or not, one thing which is incredibly useful for you to do, and I highly recommend that you do it, is to look at those companies in your sector and download the business plans and the cases of the ones which have succeeded in raising a lot of money, or even better, have exceeded their target raise. Because that will give you a really good insight into what they're doing right, what's working, what isn't, the data that they've got on the market space that you may well be in, why they're ahead of you, how to catch up, how to pivot, how to change your things. It's an immensely useful piece of free information. So please do use that. It'll also, in my experience, improve your game, because it will show you what those who are raising are doing, how they've raised it. It'll include pitch decks, their financials, and so on. And it'll make you better at what you're doing in many cases. This is how I want you to do your investor research. If you haven't got a spreadsheet like this, if you're looking at investment, whether it's a friends and family round or whether it is angels and the angel groupings are on the site, then you're just not diligent enough. Something as serious as growing your business should not be reliant upon, hey, Alpesh, do you know anybody who might want to put some money in my company? Really, it can't be that. So it has to be down to what type of investor, who are the key investors at that firm? Have you looked? Have you checked LinkedIn and the website of the company? Check the newspaper articles about that company, who it is. Are they currently investing? Have they invested already in your sector? In which case, they're hardly about to invest in a competitor to somebody they're already invested in. And what's their value add in any event? Why are you approaching them? Oh, I don't know. I just want some money. Strong attitude won't get you it. Does their thinking fit where you're going? If not, do you need to tweak what you're going to send them to make sure it fits what they are looking for? How do you find what they're looking for? Look at what their investment committee members have posted on LinkedIn, what they've written about, what the newspapers have written about, and their website, obviously. Okay, if they've already invested in a competitor of yours, they're not going to invest in you, highly unlikely. And then do you want to go ahead and engage with them or not? If you're not doing it to this level of detail, then you're wasting everybody's time. More importantly than wasting your own time, you're wasting other people's time. The other thing you need to do is then track and schedule those engagements. When I was raising capital for my hedge fund, we had to do it like this. Was the investor, do I know somebody? Is there a mutual connection? If there is, a warm introduction's ideal. Have you requested that? How might you write that? I'll show that in a second. Has the intro been sent? When was it sent? Have you followed up? Everybody's busy. What's the meeting date? What's the partner meeting pitch date? All the rest of it. Follow up, meeting complete, result. Okay, have we put it into the calendar? Look at that. Take a picture, replicate it. Right? And then the closing process, the final stage, the amount you're looking for, paperwork. Are these things ready or not? And if you want to see what they should look like, look at the website that I created, techtogreat.com. Also have a look at the crowdfunding sites as well if you want to get quick access to things. 3 biggest mistakes I have observed in all my years, 15 years of doing this role, from whether it's when I've been out in Shanghai, Beijing, Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, throughout India, America, there's a lot of experience here and a lot of gray hairs to prove it. Mistake number 1, do you know anyone who might want to invest in my company? Mistake number 2, don't know how to present. If you don't know how to present, look at Guy Kawasaki. Guy's an old acquaintance of mine. He was one of the early people at Apple. Steve Jobs listened to him, so you might want to listen to him. He's on YouTube. He'll show you how to do it right. He'll do the 10, 20, 30 thing. Okay? Which starts off with 10 slides. He'll explain what the 20 and 30 is, right? Simple, straightforward, and it works. He's also somebody who will explain how you move a business. He was on the board of Canva, from something which is just online digital drawing to something which is an essential business resource that nobody can do without, right? Having that vision and perspective, you'll learn from people like that. I need to see, and the kind of companies we deal with in the Global Entrepreneur Program are the kinds of companies which are solving some of the world's biggest problems. We want people who have an ambition to scale, who have an ambition to become unicorns, who not just have that ambition, but have the roadmap to it, and through their technology are likely to achieve that goal. Yeah, it's serious. Okay. If your pitch deck is poor, see the resources again on techtogreat.com. And one of the first things, first impressions count. I get a poor pitch deck. The font looks awful. The graphics look like they've been from clip art circa 1995. The color scheme clearly hasn't had much thought. There's no consistency about it. Well, how the hell is anybody going to trust you with their money if you're that slapdash with how you come across? Sorry to be tough, but it's a tough world out there. Nobody owes you the money. Nobody owes you a living. How do I know if an entrepreneur is going to succeed? These are some of the things that I've noticed over the years on whether or not entrepreneurs going to succeed. First of all, they tend to be low maintenance, the successful ones. They ask a question, I give them an answer, I show them the door that they need to go through. They go through it, they come back, they say, yeah, just raise some money. They need less education. If they need education, I'm not their teacher, to be honest. There's lots of education out there if you need to know how to become an entrepreneur. It's not me you should be coming to. They do their homework. They've done their research. They're polite, they're not entitled. I rarely meet anybody who's entitled. I just met one, he happened to be out of Singapore, who we offered assistance to and so on, and turned around and said nothing was of use. Okay. Boy, have you missed out. Like I said, you show them the door and they walk, they run through it. Here's a good example of the kind of intro. If you're looking for an introduction to somebody, a warm lead, you should be able to find the email address of the person you're looking for and their job title. Look, there's LinkedIn, there's other resources. I'll show you those in a second. Even better than that, you should ask my permission to CC me in on it if we know each other and we've had the discussion. And I'll reply all and endorse you. Saves me being a bottleneck and saves me drafting the email intro, trying to work out what that person and you might have in common, that person that I might know and you know. The less of my brain time you're using, the more likely you're going to succeed, obviously. Okay? And if you've already drafted and crafted the email, guess what? You've just saved a shed load of time. You're more likely to win. Let's get some of those done. Okay, I'll give you an example of a company who did that. It was a cybersecurity company, and we sat down, we went through an Excel spreadsheet of his, and I said, look, these are people I know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he worked it out, he went through it, he did the first email intro, CC'd me, I replied all. I kid you not, he is now on a yacht in the Middle East, exited, and I think it was circa 100 million. And I've been on that yacht, so I know it's there. You know, you just know some are going to succeed from day one. And it's important to learn some of those skills and traits. If you don't know how to get hold of people's emails, there it is, Lucia. There's all sorts of others. Amazon even use these, Cognizant, and so on. Okay? And again, I might sound harsh. It's a harsh world out there. You've got a lot of competitors. You're trying to get into, let me put it this way. It's easier to get into Oxford. It's probably easier to get into Parliament than it is to get the kind of fundings we're talking about. Have a look at those incubators, have a look at those accelerators, Google for startups, for instance, but there's all sorts of others. The reason, if you're at that level where an incubator and accelerator would make sense, I want you to look at them, is this. They have great resources, great networks. There's an old saying, networks determine your net worth. Okay, so have a look at these. Have a look at them because they also have enough funding and they open doors. So they become multipliers. They leverage that. For example, Level 39 in FinTech, they've got access to the Alibaba Entrepreneur Fund. You might want to try and do that yourself, but it's going to be a hell of a lot more difficult than if you go via Level 39 and be as part of that incubator if you're eligible. There's 153, probably more now, business incubators for the UK for startups and entrepreneurs. Now, some of you will be past this stage, some of you won't be ready for it, but at least go through them. They're on tech2great.com website, including which sectors, which parts of the country, and the contact details. So you can pretty much eliminate which ones will be relevant and which ones will not. Now, you might think, what the hell is this guy from government doing? We know the old Ronald Reagan quote, don't want to deal with anybody from government. Well, I'm from the business side. I'm an entrepreneur. And I know how important finance is. So all of these resources plus more are on my tech2great.com website. And it's just so you don't miss things. Don't forget procurement. Government procures a hell of a lot of money. Okay, you can find contracts through government. It's a great credential to have. These are some of the success stories from the Global Entrepreneur Program. This is outdated now because there's a heck of a lot more now. I mean, these weren't just the only ones. We have added, in terms of what they call economic value added, over £1 billion to the UK economy from a small team, which has averaged around 12 people from the time I've been on, roughly 12 people. Google for startups, as I said, come and start something. I can't put it in better words than if it's good enough for businesses like that to be involved in this space and give you access, then I'd certainly suggest that you want to look at it in very serious terms in that regard. One of the things I would say is, look, I know at times it's difficult. Everything's difficult, which is worth doing. Keep going, keep persisting. do the homework, do the due diligence. You do as much as you can before you reach out for somebody for their help, and reach out to their help for the bits that they're going to be good at. Yes, entrepreneurs are great, but they do need to work in teams. Of course they do. Just make sure you've done everything you can do. Just to summarize then, Google for startups plus a million other, 153 other incubators and accelerators. Do look at them if you're at that stage. Do look at government procurement. Do look at all the sources of financing. Have a spreadsheet to make sure you've accessed every single one to determine whether it's appropriate for you if funding is what you are indeed looking for. Network, not just government, but network through those various entities which are out there, which help with networking. You find the email address and the relevant person at the firm. Okay, you draft that email, get it ready, so you're low maintenance to the person you want to introduce you to open the door, right? With LinkedIn and those other resources, there's really no excuse to getting that warm introduction, but you doing the hard work. So the person says, yeah, introducing you would make me look good. Look at the traction you've achieved. Look at how much momentum you've got. And those things are incredibly important, right? There it is, the closing process, the investor engagement, the investor research. That's the level you should be looking at. If you need to upskill, have a look at how those ahead of you are already upskilling. And like I said, those great resources that are already there will allow you to do all your research, get on with it, and succeed. There is, whether it's Brexit or otherwise, there is more capital than ever in the United Kingdom, and coming here and from here investing more and more into technology as well, and the talent here. So there's been no better time to look at going global, taking some of that capital, going global, opening those doors, and starting to expand and grow your business. Assuming you want to be a scale up, you've got massive ambitions. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I will always share more resources on there as I go through it. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you all.